Welcome to the Endpoints podcast, presented by the ALS Therapy Development Institute. I'm Jonathan Gang. There are currently no effective treatments available for ALS. Because of this, many people living with ALS turn to clinical trials, both to get a chance to receive a potentially beneficial treatment and to help push forward the scientific effort to help end the disease. It's not an easy commitment. Participants may have to travel to faraway sites to receive treatment, undergo uncomfortable or even painful procedures, and face the chance that, in many trials, they may be randomized into the placebo group. José Fajardo, a radio producer and executive living in Hawaii, elected to take on some remarkable challenges in order to join a clinical trial himself, including traveling for regular site visits all the way from Hawaii to Texas. Today, he joins us on Endpoints to talk about his story, how he decided a clinical trial was right for him, and what his experience was like. Jose, who grew up in Puerto Rico, had already enjoyed a long career in radio, TV, and news when he came to Hawaii to take over as the director of the local NPR station in 2016. In 2019, just a few years into his dream job, he first began to notice something wasn't right.
All my life, I've been very active. I played soccer through high school. As an adult, I played in softball leagues. I played in adult soccer leagues till I was 52. Did a boxing routine, biked 20 miles on the weekend. When I came to Hawaii, I got into outdoor running, and especially running the beautiful trails here in Hawaii. In a very, in running really in a competitive way, working out 3 or 4 times a week at Orange Theory Fitness. And because I was in really good shape and I understood my body, I started to notice gradual changes to my running gait, my walking gait, and my balance. And this started happening around the fall of 2019. And I just noticed that all of a sudden, things that I used to be able to do in the gym, balance-wise, were becoming difficult. I was noticing that when I walk to work, that sometimes I felt like I was walking like I was drunk, and sometimes I would feel like I was walking like I was Frankenstein, and I started to communicate this with my primary care physician, who thought I was just overexerting myself. He said, "Look, you're in your mid 50s. You need to slow down a little bit." I was doing a lot of travel at the time, so he just thought I was just overextending myself. So I took some time off from working out and running, but the issues weren't going away, and then I started experiencing spasms in my legs, and eventually I convinced my PCP to give me a referral to a neurologist. And right away, the neurologist, within minutes of doing some minor physical examinations, expressed concerns, although he didn't know at the time what I had, but he realized that something was not right. So I was put through a battery of tests, dozens of blood tests, a couple of MRIs, spinal tap, which is a lot of fun, by the way, and eventually an EMG, which all came back negative. This was in the early 2020, so this was right at the beginning of COVID. All the tests came back negative. The EMG came back negative. And so at that point, my neurologist was able to say, you're clear of all the bad stuff. And the only thing remaining is paraparesis, which is the gradual paralysis of the legs. And I was like, okay, well, if all the bad stuff has been eliminated, I could deal with paraparesis and deal with that effectively. But what started to occur was that things were just getting worse and not stable. And then I started noticing that I was getting twitching in the legs and twitching in the arms and spasms and cramping in the arms. And I went back to my neurologist, and one of his colleagues actually came into the room who had looked at my records and said, something's not right here. Let me do, if you're willing, let me do an EMG right now of your arms. And he did. And right away, he noticed the signs of ALS present in my arms. So at that point, we transferred to another neurologist who specializes in ALS here in Hawaii. And she ordered a complete EMG, ankle to head type EMG, and that confirmed the diagnosis that ALS was present in my lower limbs and my upper limbs and my back, and not in my bulbar area. That official diagnosis, came in May of 2021.
Facing a diagnosis with few good options, Jose and his family decided to search for a clinical trial that might provide for access to an experimental ALS treatment.
One of the first things we did when we received the diagnosis was to begin the research process of what is out there. And what we learned quickly is that we really had to become our own advocates, because these research trials don't come looking for you. You have to look for them. And you have to be consistently on top of it to make sure that you're getting in front of the right people to at least create an awareness of who you are and that you are willing to participate. We found the Healy trial online as we were doing our research, and really were impressed with the new approach of a platform trial looking at several possible medications, sharing the placebo, which meant that instead of a 50-50 placebo active drug, you had a 75% chance of getting the active drug. And so for that, it was very appealing to me. And then the fact that at the end of the trial, you could enter into the extended program where you can then receive the active drug for another 6 months. So we did a lot of research. I contacted Healy, worked with some of their patient facilitators who were very helpful in connecting me with a couple of clinics that were willing to take someone from outside of their region. And Texas Neurology was just perfect. They were just so good to work with. And it was like it's like applying for college. You're filling out a lot of paperwork. You're following up. You're trying to make the best impression to the folks making the decision to allow you to participate. We were lucky enough to do that well and to be included in this medical trial.
Jose had found a trial he felt good about, but there was one big hurdle: traveling from Hawaii all the way to Texas for the regular site visits required by the trial. In many ways, he was lucky. He was the boss at his job, so he could take all the time he needed, and he had the resources to travel. Still, there were many challenges to work through.
Well, the first thing we did is we set up a GoFundMe account, because we had a lot of friends who had reached out and asked, how can we help? And so we set up a GoFundMe account to allow friends and family to help with covering the cost of travel. I've always been a good traveler. I mean, I loved to travel around the world. And but as my progression progressed, or my disease progressed, every trip became a little bit more challenging, including, securing a wheelchair, at the gate, getting into the seat. My wife was traveling with me, and to help me, get from the seat to the bathroom, or from the seat, to the wheelchair, out out of the airport. So every trip became more challenging as my ability to walk decreased. But it's one of those things that if you commit yourself, as I committed myself to participate in this program, then those are the kind of challenges that you have to overcome to be able to attend participate and do it in a positive way.
Jose, who spent so much of his life in news telling the stories of others, also decided that he would share his own story of living with ALS and participating in a clinical trial. He started a blog to keep his friends and family updated, and to spread awareness of the disease and the current lack of effective treatments.
From the very start, my wife and I decided that we wanted to share our story and to be transparent with friends and family and colleagues. And we thought the best way to do that was to create a website, a blog, where I could share my story and my experiences with friends and family who were reaching out to, check on, how I was doing. And so instead of answering, every phone call and every email, we thought it was easier to just put it out there on a website. And that has been really, for us, a great way to have a place to share our experience, but also, I think, to educate friends and family who may not really know what ALS really is and what it does. They know about the Ice Bucket Challenge. They might know, about Stephen Hawkins and Lou Gehrig, but they may not really understand how this disease progresses and how this disease impacts patients differently, and all the challenges that it presents to an individual. And so I think it's important for me to document my experience. If I'm able to educate one person, and if that one person goes to als.org to learn more about how to help folks with ALS, then we've done our job. I've also done interviews here at my own public radio station. I've done another podcast with a friend of mine from Orlando. And again, it's all about sharing, educating, and advocating for more funding for ALS and to educate the community as much as I can.
Unfortunately, Jose ultimately experienced something many participants go through, especially in ALS: the suspension of his trial. Even though there was still time to go in the planned study, the researchers had seen enough data to conclude that the drug was not providing a significant benefit to the participants.
So when we received the news that Regimen A was being suspended, again, I was disappointed in hearing that, but I wasn't angry. I didn't get upset. I didn't cry. What for us, it was okay. Just like Thomas Edison had to fail hundreds of times before he achieved the light bulb, we know that these trials are designed to do exactly the same thing. There's going to be lots of failures before they get something right. And so for us, it allowed us to close that chapter and then to look at what's the next thing. And so for us, when we go to Texas Neurology, we'll be talking with the neurologist there to see what his thoughts are of what some of our next steps could be, because there are other trials out there besides the Healy platform trials that we may want to participate in. We were able to get into Synapticure early. We were asked by IMALS to participate before they went public. And that allowed us not just access to my complete DNA results, but also to connect with Dr. Bedlack at Duke University, who is a leading neurologist when it comes to ALS. And we'll be seeing him in August. And we hope that will also open some doors for other treatments, because Dr. Bedlack kind of approaches ALS kind of out of the box. He does look at, the science part of it, but he also looks at other ways to help patients with ALS. So we'll be looking at other alternatives. And the issue for me is that the clock's ticking because a lot of trials do not accept patients beyond 2 or 3 years from the onset of the first symptoms. And I'm getting close to that, clock. So we're hoping to get into the next trial or some other assets that we can get a hold of before we get locked out, which is I understand why they do that, but it's an unfortunate issue with ALS patients and trials. It is after 2 or 3 years from your onset, you're pretty much locked out from those trials. But there's other treatments out there that we'll hope to participate in.
Jose's attitude about his situation and his willingness to make sacrifices to help move forward ALS research are remarkable and inspiring. For others living with ALS and considering a clinical trial, he says persistence and an openness to whatever may come are essential.
Yeah, my advice for individuals that are looking to get into medical trials is jump on it as quickly as possible. Don't let time get away, because the quicker you're able to access entry into a medical trial, the better off you're going to be. And the other thing is you have to be your own advocate. You have to be a bulldog. You have to consistently be checking in, following up, providing all the information that they ask for, and then enter it with the philosophy and the understanding that the medical trial may not do anything for you. One of the things that concerned me looking at some of the blogs and Facebook groups is individuals that were in medical trials and were getting frustrated because they weren't seeing improvements by participating. And I don't think that's the reason that someone should get into the medical trial. Yes, we want it to help us and see improvements in our progression, but you can't enter it in that mindset. You have to enter it in, I'm helping science find a solution for ALS. And it may not help me, but this whole experience is going to help others. And I think having that mindset is the mindset I went into the trials is so important to have a positive experience with the trial.
To read more about Jose's story, you can check out his blog at teamjose.com. To learn more about research at the ALS Therapy Development Institute, including our commitment to bringing a new treatment into clinical trials every 2 years, visit als.net. Thanks for listening.